that has welcomed
the
industry
national anthem.
And welcomed.
Arise, O compatriots. I'd like to invite our lead discussant, Mrs. Kemi Adeosun, the Honorable Minister of Finance. Can we please give her a round of applause?
Your Excellency, the Vice President, Your Excellency, the Governor of Ogun State, Your Excellency, the former President of Mexico, Excellency, the wife of the Governor, Excellency, the Deputy Governor, the Minister for Agriculture, Kabiesis, industry leaders, National Assembly members, local legislators, ladies and gentlemen. First of all, I'd like to say thank you very much for this opportunity to speak. I'm going to, with your permission, just run through a few slides that talk about the focus on growth and really try and outline a little of what we're doing at an economic management team level and give you some sense of the macro picture for Nigeria and why we are very, very confident that the strategy we're pursuing is the right one for Nigeria and the one that will deliver growth. So just to recap, the global economy is on the rebound, and output is forecast to be around 3.7% was 3.7% last year and forecast to be greater than that slightly in 2018 and 2019. And many of the shocks that really drove us into recession, particularly the oil price, have been moderated by a combination of the policies of OPEC and other factors. But let me, with your permission, just take us back, because it's useful to, now that we're out of recession, people forget the choices that we faced. When we came in as an administration in 2016 or 2015, the oil prices had collapsed, our reserves were eroded. Can you take the slide back? I don't know who's doing this. I'll say next slide when, thank you. So our reserves were eroded and we had very few options. We couldn't balance our books. And there were two options, two economic options. One was austerity, which is balance your books by cutting back on public spending, and that would have meant massive job losses. Cut back on public spending and balance your books. That's one theory. The other one, which was the one we took, was act counter-cyclically. Pump money into the economy, get demand going again, get growth going again, and then balance your books. We took the second option, and I'll explain the reasons. We felt that our growth, even when it was at 7% and above, was suboptimal. It was driven purely by a high oil price. There was really nothing else in the non-oil economy that was growing. And when we looked backwards, what was the cause of that? It was the lack of infrastructure. So yes, if you looked at GDP growth was positive, but you had a very, very uncomfortable outcome of growth without development. So GDP growth, but no development for the people. GDP growth, but no improvement in income. GDP growth, but rising unemployment. And the only way we felt to fix that was to fix the infrastructure. There are very few industries or very few areas of the economy that can grow without infrastructure. So the focus of this administration was, let us look for money from wherever and let us pump it into our infrastructure. And that's really what we did. We went and looked for the cheapest money from multilateral agencies, largely at 1.5%, in some cases at 0.8%, concessional funds. We supplemented it with some funds from the commercial windows, and we pumped money into the economy. Let me give you the outcome of that. In 2015, the total amount spent on roads, or power works and housing for the entire economy was around 19 billion. By the time 2017 was done, we had done 405 billion. Transport saw a 4 times increase in allocation. Agriculture saw a significant increase in allocation. We allocated money to those sectors because we believe that those are the sectors that can drive growth. And now that we're out of recession, we're beginning to see the results. Are we there yet? No. There are still many more adjustments to be made. But with adjustments, it's about sequencing and impact. It's about sequencing, it's about the timing of the measure and its impact on the people. So, for example, now we can talk about taxes. And I can go out pretty much anywhere in the country, as I have done, and tell people that you need to pay your taxes. Now, if I brought that rhetoric when we were in recession, I think the results would have been stones aimed at me. But now that people can see growth and can see income, we are now bringing the message that as we grow, as we go back to growth, we need to start building the blocks of a tax system that will support long-term growth. So it's all about timing. Next slide, please. So what are we doing now? We're rebuilding the macroeconomic resilience that is needed to make sure that we don't ever end up where we were before. We're rebuilding our reserves. They're up at historic highs. We still need more. We're trying to work now with NMPC to ensure that we start to have excess crude and have savings again, so that we don't end up in a situation where we had no alternative but to go and borrow in order to fund our development. We're changing the funding mix. That's why you're hearing a lot of narrative around taxes. We anticipated in the first 3 years we would need to accelerate our borrowing significantly, but then it would begin to taper off as revenue begins to come in. So working very, very hard to plug the revenue leakages. We're focusing on import substitution strategies. What caused the Forex crisis in 2016? We had huge import dependency in basic items. If there are things that we can manufacture locally, we need to focus on them. And that's part of what we're doing, particularly in the area of food, because a significant amount of our Forex goes on food. A lot of our Forex goes on petroleum. So there are deliberate strategies of government to ensure that we preserve our Forex balances and we preserve and protect ourselves against Forex risk. And of course, we have to work on the soft infrastructure, the ease of doing business, to make sure that companies can actually invest profitably. It's not just about the roads and the bridges, it's also about getting approvals and getting permits. It's about ease of paying taxes and ease of credit. So the government has had a very, very comprehensive package of reforms that are needed to get the economy growing again. Next slide, please. And as I say, we think it's working. The World Bank and the general